Welcome to Service Six Sigma, a live stream for mobile service professionals. Great news, you're here early. Please stand by as our live stream is about to begin. Thank you. Did you know that Service Six Sigma has 6 sectors? Here they are: attract, convert, deliver, control, scale, and give back.
Hello, Ben here with Service Six Sigma. Are joining our live stream early to watch our pre-reels that we have on our live stream. Play this for about 10 minutes and then we will start our show at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.
John Carmazon teaches valuable insights into selling service bundles to customers. To watch the whole episode, visit www.service6sigma.com. Learn what happened next in Brian Hoyt's amazing and inspiring life story at service6sigma.com. We have many guests that we have on our show. Be part of a growing community of guest speakers and share your professional insight in the mobile service industry. Welcome to a free live stream built around 6 sectors. This live stream created for mobile service professionals. We would like to introduce you to your hosts, Ben Bergloff and Perry Tate. Welcome to Service Six Sigma, your live stream for mobile service professionals. We want to thank you for joining our show today. Please stand by as our show is about to start. Thank you.
Boom.
Boom, here we are. I'm here from a different part of Thailand. You can see my beautiful backdrop. Oh, look,
Your
there's a
backdrop
little
is keep on
reflection in that
changing every
mirror.
day.
Yeah, look at that. Lovely bit of beach there. Okay, so today we've got Paul Finster back because his story was so riveting and compelling. And for somebody who's been, through all the stages of business, and it's just amazing to sort of recap on a life story and, keep the recreation of a person, continually. So, but first I'll just quickly explain what is Service Six Sigma for the people who've never been to us before. It's a live stream podcast. It's free to join and watch. And we've got a whole library at service6sigma.com of past events, over 40 past events, which you can catch some of the industry leaders and some stories. And we've got some young guys coming through in the pipeline as well. We'll be able to talk with them about their ambitions. So it's for the service industry, all the services, and it is basically the principle is Six Sigma, and the Six Sigma is a business term, which is the perfecting of business through systems and processes. And what happens in business is you expect the unexpected, but you can't predict the unexpected, which is part of Paul Finster's story. And so what you do is you create systems and processes as things go wrong to make sure that they don't go wrong again as best as you possibly can. And that's basically the pathway to perfecting a business. And so to make that an easier conversation, we've broken business down into 6 sectors, and here they are. The first one is obviously how to attract a customer. So that's your prospecting, can go back to cold calling, can go to internet marketing, can go to door knocking. Well, that's cold calling, isn't it? And so social media and all of those ways of saying, hey, look at me and I'm here. Having got their attention, you now need to convert them into a sale, right? So then you've got your sales process that, again, can be face-to-face. It can be over the phone with Google Earth, or it can be something automated, for example, with something like Responsibid. Although I learned from Kurt Kempton, you can use Responsibid in all three situations very efficiently. Having converted the sale, you now need to deliver the service. So the delivery part of it is normally all about efficiency. So it's your tools and the technique that goes with those tools. And then it's your technique on site management, route management, all that kind of thing. How you do your recording, like products like Company Cam. We're going to try and get Company Cam on here. Like anything which increases your efficiency on site is in that delivery sector. And what happens is, you're going to start your business, you're going to run it out of an Excel spreadsheet or a notebook or something like that. And then all of a sudden it's out of control. So you need to put control. That's where your software comes in. That's where your automation comes in. So we talk about the use of a CRM and things like that, as far as, adding the, just adding automation. And then in the future, of course, AI is going to come into there somewhere. Now that you've got this business under control and you've got this delivery program running and everything is replicable, then you can scale the business. So you can either add additional services to your business, or you can scale your business by adding multiple trucks to your service, that you provide. And then what we look for is people that have been through that whole journey, and there's a chance to give back. I mean, everybody who's made it through life has got their mentors, their people that have affected them positively and negatively through the journey. And so one of the mantras of Service Six Sigma is that we catch these people and give them a chance to tell from a personal or a professional point of view, right, how their life went. What are the change points? What are the amazing things? What happened? And so for the first time ever, we have a returning guest, Mr. Paul Finster, 77 years young, still out there. We just found out he's cracked a couple of big deals in the last few days, and he is cracking along building business. But we are going to pick up Paul. Well, firstly, I should welcome you in, Paul. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
There he is. Okay, so I'm going to quickly recap. A couple of days ago, we had you in here. Yes, back we are. So we've gone through this amazing journey of innovating a product which is completely unique and never been seen before, and did things which had never been done before, which is the first one was the grain gun, and then we got to the 44-gallon sucker, which was called the Dragon Pump. Yep. I got that. And then we've gone to America with Whole Wheel, and you paid your own way, taken your missus with you, all excited, and then they said, nah, not what we want. So you've gone to the next city, maybe, or maybe the same city, and then you've found these guys, and they've taken you out to Bell Helicopter. Detroit, yeah, that's it. So you did a 5-city tour to get the airfare cheaper, and so you're in Detroit, and then now you've come back. You've done this over America. You've come back with 6 months worth of orders, and let's pick it up from there. How did you fund those 6 months worth of orders?
Wow,
or did you have the money?
Off the bricks and mortar, of course. You do that, and then of course we picked up the guy from Toronto, which added to the order, and then we went on to San Francisco and just laid back and enjoyed Pier 48 and everything else around San Francisco for the first time in our lives, and flew back to Australia going, whoopee, we're away. I was quick to realize that we then needed to create turnover, because to come back into an Australian market, which was in recession, was like, how do we ramp up? We had the taste of what happened in America. What is this all about? So I was on a vertical learning curve in the finer art of manufacturing and exporting. And of course, so we had to do packaging and all sorts of things to meet the necessary criteria. Getting back into Australia, it was time to learn about exports. So I joined Austrade, which is the Australian export arm, And we sat down in a room of 30 odd people, and the guy teaching us about how to export said, well, you need to go to New Zealand as your first
that's right.
port of call. And everybody's going, oh, yeah, I'm listening. And of course, I put my hand up and went, why would you muck around with a population in New Zealand when you can go to America and do so much better because you've got more opportunities? And he was quick to remind me about the shoe guy that went from Thomas Shoes Manufacturing in Brisbane to LA and got an order for pairs of every shoe of every size, and come back into Australia going, whoopee, look at this big order I've got. And of course, the directors turned around and said, we can't even finance that. We would be going for the next 5 years just to supply that order. And of course, the Americans wanted drop shipment for their product to go across all of their branches in the USA. So there's a message there that you can go too big or you can go too small. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a matter of, okay, this feels good. Let's get it ramped and turn it around. Now, in the previous part, I mentioned to you that we shipped the first 100 into.
And they didn't work.
And it turned out
somebody spot welded instead of fully welded,
and they didn't work. And of course, and then all of a sudden we had all these pumps coming back. Fortunately, we saved the relationship, and it went on to be quite good. I then went back into LA and started doing small trade shows in LA, and my wife gave me a tap on the shoulder and said, there's people in the outer circle watching your demonstration. You need to be careful, because there were 6 guys all in white dust coats watching what was going on. So I said to her, hey, take over. I'm going to go around the back and talk to these guys just in case it's a serious inquiry. And I saddled up behind them because they didn't realize I'd snuck around. And I said, guys, what's going on here? And, they introduced themselves as being my competitor, having a machine that was $25,000 to $35,000 upwards. And one of the guys turned around and said, you've just stolen a client from me. He was walking in today to acknowledge he was buying one of our machines, one of the top ones, and we had the for sale sign already written out to attach to the machine, and we were going to do the publicity photographs. But he walked past your stand first. Now, my block product that I showed you earlier was $350. So this guy walked up and went, hey, that's what I'm looking for. How much is that? I went $350. He couldn't pull the wallet out of the back pocket quick enough and went, I'm taking it. Here's a token of what I'm paying for. I'll be back later. And of course, what he did is he walked over and cancelled it. And they come back to see what in the hell their competition was. It was a big difference. God. Big
$350
difference. So I walked out of, So in amongst the crowd was an English guy in his suit, and I recognized the company, but I kept that to myself. And he walked up and he said, oh, can I talk to you to the side? I'm interested in being your distributor in the UK. And I basically went, no, sorry, I know who you are, and I'm not really interested. Thank you very much. And I went back to demonstrating and left him stand there like egg all over his face. He walked away, and then a few minutes later, he managed to coerce my wife to come off the stand and said, what's wrong with your husband? He's not really accepting me, and I want to do business with him. And she turned around and said, because he knows you're running an opposition product and there's no point in supplying you.
Yes.
Well, you're running that opposition product.
Yes.
And he said, okay, tell him I'm prepared to drop that product to put his in. And the next minute she came over to me and she told me, she said, I think you better go and sit down with this guy and see where that lands, which I end up doing pretty much on protest, but I want to just see how genuine this guy is. And, you can always believe an Englishman. The end result was he turned around and said, Paul, what's it going to take for me to have the rights in the UK? So what do you do when you've got that opportunity? You think of a figure and triple it or quadruple it.
Yeah.
Because you want to determine that he is serious about what he's doing. So I did that.
And I'll just tell you,
of those yellow guns. And yeah.
Oh, there's a delay, right? I'll just tell you really quickly. When I first started off, we had Window Cleaning Warehouse in the UK. They asked for exclusive on Reach It, right? And I gave them exclusive on Reach It. They bought one product of each, and in the meantime, they were developing their own They'd bought another company that bought facelift poles, and they were developing facelift poles, and then they never sold any of mine. They just took me out of the market while they released facelift.
I'm going to give you a similar example in a few minutes.
Okay.
So anyway, I quadrupled the quantity to 1,000 of those yellows, and 100 of my pumps, and he took it. And the question was, how long more you can supply it? So this was late August, early September, and I said, I can get it in there in October. And he said, absolutely perfect. The weather's great. We're going to do a big promo. So what were the terms of trading? You send me the money, I'll send you the product, right? But I'll send you the product 4 weeks after the money arrives. Okay, we're away. He's going to do that. So he goes back to the UK, and lo and behold, out of the fax machine comes the order with acknowledgements for the bank draft. And that money come in, cold hard cash straight into the bank account. No letter of credit, no nothing. And it was a lot of bloody money. It was like $55,000-$60,000. So I'm going, oh, this is starting to feel good, right?
Yep.
So what happens is we go into production, we put it all together, we send it over, and the deal was that the moment we knew it was going to arrive at the other end, I would fly in to do what I call a Punch and Judy show, a presentation, right? So he wanted me for 2 weeks. I thought there's more than enough profit to cover me for 2 weeks. So wifey and I flew over to the UK. This is getting like exciting stuff because the two of us had no kids between us. I had 2 from a previous marriage, but I managed to switch the times around on Access, and away we went.
Yeah.
So they pick us up from the airport and they drive us up to the factory, and we see the location and we meet the people, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen? And he said, well, I've invited every distributor in the UK into a function in a hall. We're providing lunch.
Yep.
And it's going to be a full day session. We're running our other products, but you're going to be the feature, right? Well, it turned out the hall was like an old picture theatre with a stage. So you stood up above your audience and looked out on all the people. And thank God I learnt the art of speech and ad hocing and all the rest of it. So I'm up there in a suit doing this Punch and Judy presentation, and got over it. And they rumbled through a few other products, and then it was like, okay, we're done. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was almost the last part of the agenda. They wanted to build up the excitement. I come down off the stage, and I've got like 30 or 40 guys around me, all asking questions and wanting to touch the product. They had worked out deals, like package deals, that they wanted each distributor to take on board. End result was they got there and then, and then of course they got people that said, oh, come and visit me in my office, and and I'll give you the order. So the following day I'm on the road with their national sales manager, and every call that we made, they took a package deal. The end result was, within just short of the 2 weeks, the 2 working weeks, we had sold the entire consignment. So what happened was, we're due to fly out of Manchester Airport back to Brisbane, and they call us in for a final meeting in the boardroom. So all the directors are there, the national sales managers there, the whole lot. And they said to me, my wife said, like, I've got to stay alongside you. What am I going to do? And I said, just grab a notepad, act like you're taking notes, but do whatever you want, scribble, scrawl, I don't care. You know, it's all in my head. I'm fine. So, you know, the conversation gets directed to me. Well, Paul, we've never had anyone within our company or an exterior visitor do what you have done in 2 weeks. We've never moved that amount of product because, you know, you're talking small value, but very, very high numbers. We've never had that happen. Congratulations. We are astounded with you. As a result, we're going to give you another order for the same quantity because we're now out of stock. And I went, okay, this is fine. And my wife was kicking me under the table with excitement going, whoa, we got another order, right? So the next minute, the sales manager said, you know, if we can move the next order as quick as what we did this one, should we not give him a second advance order? So the next minute, the table is circulating conversation between different people, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I'll just see where this lands. So we're talking 55 odd grand a hit. So now it's gone to $110,000. One person in the group turned around and said, Paul, if you supply this in November and then December, what happens if we're running out of stock prior to Christmas? And they all looked at each other and went, bloody hell, we never thought about that. So the next minute they said, we're going to send you 3 orders and we'll send the money 1 month apart on each of the orders. So for the next 3 months, I had a guaranteed 55,000 Aussie dollar income in advance of production, right? Yep. And of course, we shipped it out. Now, that was the hill. What happens on the other side? The other side become interesting because you say to yourself, can this keep on going? How much can you put into the pipeline?
Yes.
And know that what is the continuation of that pipeline?
Is it a bell curve or is it a yep.
Ongoing, right? So we got over Christmas and we sat back and twiddled our thumbs. As it turned out, we got an opportunity to go back into Toronto with the sale of the pumps that I made in Toronto and my yellow guns. This time I'd actually done some small production runs in different colors. So I had a whole mixed bag of different colored guns. And the Toronto guys said, Paul, there's a trade day or week going in Montreal. Can we fly you up to Montreal? And would you be prepared to do a 3-day trade show in Montreal? I went, yeah. And he went, all expenses paid. We'll pick up the tab. So we go to Montreal, and the reaction to my product, both Dragon Pump and the guns, was phenomenal. But now I've got the multicolors. So what happens in Montreal, because it's French speaking, is a guy walks in to the stand from Paris, introduces himself. He is the largest distributor in France of Goering products. Goering is the number one in drills and taps and things like that for the machine tool industry.
Right.
It turns out that the company is the original supplier to Citroën and Renault, going back to the days when the cars were first produced in France. The guy himself, it's a father to son business, so it's generational built. His wife is a leading cardiovascular surgeon in France, and he invites me to come to Paris on basis that he will buy my 1,000 guns and my 100 Dragon pumps and the money in advance. I'm sitting there going, wow, and the Canadians are going, how the hell did that happen? Like, we picked up some local orders for Canada, but nothing like the volume that was going to go into France, right? So what happens there is, of course, they say, well, we'll send you the fax and we'll send you the bank details. And we're, yeah, okay. And I want that particular color, right? Great. The colors now are starting to work for me. And we'll talk about colors because that's some of the stuff that I've sent you. So now I'm going back to, sorry, my daughter's texting me in the background. I go back to Brisbane, know full well that I've got this order, and now I've been invited to Paris along with my beautiful wife. So what happens? We go to Paris. Once the shipment arrived, and now I've got his entire sales team in the back of their factory warehouse situation, and I'm doing my Punch and Judy show, and they're doing interpretation because the English is very limited, and after all, they're French. What the hell, right?
Yeah.
So what happens there? We love the product. We're going to take it to market. But Paul, you've got to understand, to get the full volume that you're expecting, it'll take 5 years to get into the French market. 5 years. So, you know, you've got a tiger by the tail. We're going to do our best, but you're going to have to be patient. Don't expect the next order straight away as you've experienced in other countries. Okay, I can live with that because I'll move on. So what they then do is they set up a trade, because there's a machine tool exhibition coming up. Can you come back for that? And I went, yeah, sure, no problems at all. So, you know, a few months goes by, and then they connect me and say, that show's on, can you come over? Meanwhile, I've gone back into the United States, and now I'm looking for a US distributor. And at the time, I was selling a range of product out of the US with a company that was in the Venturi business. And this was to help build my product range, my domestic product range in Australia. I had a young sales manager working for me, and he was appointed to look after the Australian market because now I had all this capital. I could afford to start employing people. And we only had a team of 4, so it was very small business. Anyway, next minute is we go out, and I said to him, look, as a bonus, you've done so good, you're going to come to America with me. Like, he'd never been to America. He's 26 years of age. So we go to America, and we go into what is now Cincinnati, where this company is, to do a training course of their product. And I'm there for a week to do this training course along with my protege, who is responsibility to sell the American product in Australia. So it was critical that he learnt about it. I took samples because now I'm carrying all my product in aluminium camera cases, right? I've got 3 camera cases I'm carrying with me aside from luggage, because my attitude was, I'll do this week and then I'm going to go out and find a distributor for my product. I'm looking at this company at the same time, and I wanted to know what they knew. And it turned out that my technology was far superior to their technology. And this became interesting because on the second last day, we were tapering off. Like I had learned everything that I wanted to learn from them. And they still had a question mark in their mind as to who in the hell I was. But hey, it's Australia. If we get business in Australia, isn't that great? End result was that they couldn't do things that my yellow gun could, which was picking up heavy pieces of metal. So a little 1/4-inch brass adapter, they couldn't pick it up and convey it, but I could. They had nothing for picking up fluids, but my Dragon pump could. And so here we are, sort of sitting there, second last day in the morning, and I'm saying, look, you've got a gap in your market. And I actually have the answer to it. And they're saying, well, Paul, what do you do in Australia? And I said, well, I'm actually manufacturing these products. Would you be interested in seeing them? We're leading now up to lunchtime on the second last day. And lo and behold, they said, yeah, we'll drive you back to the hotel and pick up the cases and in. So away we went. We had lunch out in the road, went to the hotel, picked up the cases, come back. And now we're in the boardroom. And they're going, so what the hell have you got in there? I opened up the cases and they went, bloody hell, what is this? Can we hook it onto the airline? Now, they had a wall in their room which had their products and air connections and metering valves, which would run various tools on. So, of course, they want to attach my product. And they go out and they get some metal and other bits and pieces. And I hook my yellow gun up with a little bag on the back. Look at this. And they went, who's selling this in America? And I went, well, Dragon Pump, you know, we've got a guy in Cleveland and we've got a guy in Philadelphia, but that's it. Can we have the American agency? I went, here we go again. So I went, yeah, 1,000 guns, 100 Dragon Pumps, let's go. Right? So I'm thinking, you know, because I'm just giving them a nominal margin, I'm buying off them and they're making margin off the product they're selling to me. So I'm just getting my money back by selling product to them, right? It's a swing over. It's what you do. So they go, yeah, we'll give you the order. Yeah, we'll send you the money, because I've been buying off them by TT transfers. So there was no letter of credit or credit terms. So great. My motor is like over the moon. So away we go. We've got the order. And I said to him, well, there's no point in us staying any longer in the US. We'll go back to LA. You can go surfing at Malibu or whatever you want to do. I'm going back to Australia to do what I've got to do. And as it turned out, I went back to Hawaii and sat on the beach for a few days and then went back to Brisbane, nice and tan. And my wife's going, you know, I should have went with you, but anyway, what the hell. So now we've got this order, right? This is, again, this curve that we've just talked about as to what happens on the other side of the curve.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, these bastards reverse engineered both products. And what they did is, on my yellow gun, I had engraved the name Blowback. So when the stock arrived, they took to it with a grinder and ground the Blowback label off it and put a self-adhesive label over the top and took it to market. Now, this is the downside about not having intellectual property in a market that you enter, right? So now let's go back to the English exercise. When I did that first Punch and Judy 2-week trade, I had a few hours off and I went to the local, a local accountant who then pulled in a solicitor, and I registered the Blowback trademark in the UK. So, and I registered a company. So I had a dormant company sitting in the UK, and I had trademark registration in there. When I went to Paris, I did exactly the same thing. Now, the Paris show, a guy walked onto the stand from Spain, saw the demonstration and went, hey, can I have this in Spain? And I went, yeah, but, you know, it's 1,000 guns and it's this, and it might be a bit rich for you. I don't know. And he went, no, it's not. Can we buy from you, and will you do a trade show in Barcelona? Of course, absolutely. Not a problem.
Absolutely.
We're happy to do that.
Yep.
Oh, I want a color. Yep, we'll give you the exclusive color. And can you change the packaging to Spanish on the packaging? And I went, yeah, we can do that. We'll send you all the artwork. You convert it, and then we'll do it accordingly. We did the same thing for the French as well, by the way. And the UK, we did it in their color with their packaging. Of course, the English wasn't a problem. So now I've got a Spanish deal on the go, and now I'm also trying to deal with the American thing, right? And of course, now there's no more business coming out of America, but I don't have time to deal with it. One of the things I found out about Americans, that they hate working in Europe across the board when they are in excess of 40 years of age, trying to understand small hotel rooms, the food, the languages, and the money, right? Because the euro wasn't there at that stage. It was all different currencies. So you walk around with a bag of bloody lira or bloody francs or whatever it may be. Okay. So now we've got a situation going where my attention is on America, but my turnover is coming out of Europe. So I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty good. Now we're doing some sales calls, because I'm still working in France, but I'm getting prepared for Spain, and I'm in Stuttgart, and the next minute I'm in a industrial distributor's place, and there's a guy there from Germany, and he's looking at my presentation to these French guys in Stuttgart, and he's going, wow, I'm really interested in this. Turns out he was the national sales manager and a director of a company called Sartorius. And Sartorius now is occupied by the Worth Group here in Australia. I don't know about other places in the world, but WURTH. Big conglomeration here in Australia.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. With two dots above the U.
Yeah. He's standing there and he said, exactly. And he said, can I take you and your French colleague to lunch? And I went, yep. Are you staying in town? And I said, yes, we are tonight. And he said, can I get some private time with just you in your motel? I'll come to you. We can have dinner, whatever. And I looked at my friend and I said, would you mind? And he said, no, Paul, I'm happy to have some time out. I've got reports and things to do. So we had lunch together, got to know each other over lunch, sipped a glass of wine, whatever. And we went back to the motel. We did some work, and then the German thing kicked in. He turned around and said, we're out of Dusseldorf. Can you come to Dusseldorf? So fortunately, I hadn't booked a return ticket back to Australia out of Paris. So I flew to Dusseldorf the following week. And the owner of Sartorius was the biggest guy that I've ever seen. If he was 25 stone, I wouldn't be joking. He drove a 12-cylinder Mercedes-Benz, and when he sat in it, it tilted sideways to handle his body weight. And of course, he was very, very anxious to meet me based on what was happening with his sales manager and the experiences that I'd been having, which I discussed over dinner that night. So the next minute, it's well, Paul, we'll take you to the office. They picked me up from the airport in this bloody huge car, the sales manager and the owner. And we go back to the office, and he said, I've organized all of my sales reps to be in the room. You're going to meet everybody. I want you to do a presentation. And I said, are you okay with the English? He said, well, where we're not, we'll do it for you. So I'm standing there in a room of about 30 to 40 guys. I'm doing this bloody presentation. I'm thinking, God, how big is this company? The warehousing from the outside was huge, absolutely huge. So the next minute we do the presentation, everybody's happy. So this is morning, and it's like, they're done. See you later, guys. Go out and get work. Do your sales call. So they only want them for the morning. So then we go into the purchasing officer's office, and I meet him. The owner has now walked away, left me with the sales manager. And the purchasing officer said, I've been told to give you your order, but before I do, I want to understand your product. Can I have a look at your yellow gum? And I said, sure. Pulled it out of my case and put it in front of him. The next minute he opens the drawer and pulls out a pair of verniers. And he starts measuring the material thickness on the gun and looking at it from every angle. And he, pulled it apart so he understood it. And he said, where do you get these made? And I said, well, they're Australian made. And he went, no. Australia doesn't make this quality. You have sheep, you have wheat, you have minerals, but you don't do serious manufacturing. And I went, yeah, sorry, we do. And he said, I'm amazed. And he said, so I'm told I've got to give you an order for 1,000 guns and 100 Dragon pumps. And I said, yes. And he said, good, please go to lunch, enjoy yourself. The order will be here for you after lunch. I'll have it raised. Right. And of course he had the price list and, all the jargon that you have. So we leave the room, and now the owner comes back with the two of us and said, okay, guys, we're off for lunch. So we get in the limousine and away we go to this brilliant Italian restaurant. And he said, Paul, I hope you like Italian food. I said, at this stage of my life, I like every food. I don't care what it is. So the restaurant was like upper class, white gloves, it was silver service. It was like you wouldn't believe. In the middle of this restaurant was the biggest pizza oven you have ever laid eyes on. So the whole seating was around the pizza oven, which would have been providing heat during the winter for the restaurant. He had pre-ordered our lunch, right? So sitting down, the wine's being served. There's both red and white on the table. I'm asked if I'd like a whiskey, and I don't drink whiskey, so I'm having fine. We're having this conversation. The English is good from both guys. And the next minute, the waiter comes over and puts in the middle of the table the biggest plate you've ever seen, with the largest fish you have ever seen, with all the trimmings over the outside of it, and salad bowls as well for all of us. And it was, Paul, carte blanche, please enjoy yourself. Take a serve. The fish was pre-cut, so you could just put a slide in like a little cake shovel and just take out your section of fish that you wanted, and put it on the plate. And this guy, big as what he was, he just this fish was devoured in like 40 odd minutes. It was gone, as were the salad bowls and the 2 bottles of wine. And he said, Paul, let's go back to the office now. We walked out. He didn't pay a bill. There was no account. He just got up and we walked out. I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. So off we go. And we're back to the office and back into the PO's bloke. And he gives me the order form. And he said, that's it. We don't need you more. We're happy with everything. So what do? They take you back to the hotel, and they said, we're going to pick you up and take you to dinner tonight. And then tomorrow, of course, I was scheduled to fly out, right?
Yeah.
So, and the deal is the same. When the stock arrives, we want you to come back for a trade show.
Yeah.
So I go back to the hotel. I sat in the room for a while, and then I sort of went downstairs and sat in the bar, and I'm watching overhead German TV, and the news come on. And what was happening is they had a convoy of German military vehicles on the highway, Unimogs, right? And I'm sitting there looking at this, and the next minute the newsreel, and a truck stops, and the guys jump out. Turns out that the Unimog had run out of diesel. So they roll a 44-gallon drum out of the back of this truck onto a tire with no rim on the tire on the ground, and then they roll it near the fuel tank, put in a conventional one of those pumps that you pump back and forward, and they're pumping fuel. And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, oh my God, Father. I don't believe that a military convoy is reliant on a manual pump to transfer diesel into a fuel tank. My brain was going at 100%, to the point I grabbed a napkin, pulled a pen out of my suit jacket, and started drawing my next invention, which I call Fast Fill. I've rejuvenated Fast Fill 5 times. I finally got the product where I wanted. I didn't take it to market. I've got it as a working prototype along with 3D engineering drawings, and I'm right on the edge of taking it to market, but selling the patent rather than manufacturing and trying to sell the product, because I had enough of distribution and distributors, and I'll probably make a couple of $100,000 off it. But basically, it's that high. It screws into the 44-gallon drum, puts pressure on the drum, and will unload a drum of diesel inside a minute with no moving parts. Totally safe. Brilliant. 100%. The technology in it has been developed over years and years and years, and I'm really excited about it, and it's going to take off. But I come home and I couldn't build the first prototype quick enough. Similar story to the Dragon pump. Anyway, as it turned out, I went back into Germany, and we went out on the road, and I taught the German national salesman how to sell the product. And of course, that thing just ramped, and Germany did what they wanted to do with their color and their packaging, and it had an ongoing run until Sartorius sold their business to Worth. It turned out the national sales manager had an accident in his Mercedes on the Autobahn, smashed himself up really bad to the point he couldn't do the job anymore. So all the knowledge to him was gone, and I lost the connection with them. Nevertheless, now we go to Spain, and I did the same thing in Spain, and lo and behold, I had 3 guys, all Italian, all walk up to the stand to say, I've never seen this before, I want it in Italy. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Who are you? What are, of course, they all did their tradition, their literature, their catalogues, whatever. In these days, it was all paper catalogues. And, And I said the same thing to all 3 of them. 1,000 guns will do your color, 100 Dragon pumps, that's where it sits, right? All three of them went away. All 3 of them come back. 2 of them turned around and said, no, it's too rich for us on a startup order. The third one come back and said, you know what? It is too rich for a startup order, but the truth of the matter is, if I don't take it, I'm going to be a fool, because I can see the potential. So I'll send you the money on the proviso that you come into Italy and train me up and meet my distributors. We didn't do a show, but meet my distributors. We moved 1,000 guns in 1 week. And one of the things that he taught me is really, really interesting. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So when I come back, we're in the Mercedes with the national sales manager seat. So 3 of us are doing sales calls in little tiny in different parts of Milan. That's where we started. Then we went out from Milan to other locations. The end result was the first customer we went to. We did the presentation, like the guys did the presentation. I just stood back as the factory rep. And the customer said, oh, I'll take 50 guns. And he went, no, I'm not giving you 50 guns. And he said, why not? And he said, no, I'm not giving you 50 guns, but I'll give you 5. So he sold him 5 guns and walked out, and 1 Dragon pump, and walked out with the order for 5 guns and 1 Dragon pump. I get in the front passenger seat and I'm red with anger. Why did you turn down that order? And he said, Paul, just today, please just be patient. Okay. So the same thing happened call after call. It was between 5 and 10 guns per customer. And we got back and he said, now I'm ready to sit down with you over a coffee and I'll talk to you about why I've done what I've done. So we sat down in Milan in the beautiful square there, and we just talked. And he said, what I've done, Paul, is he said, the guy that of the day, I know that he'll move 50. But he said, the duration of that 50 sitting on the shelf is going to take some time, which means that his enthusiasm to turn it over is going to take time. However, if he buys 5, and he turns it over in 1 day, what's he going to do? He's going to be on the phone and he's going to want 10. And I'm going to say, no, you have 5. And he said, trust me, this will work. And I trusted him, and boy, did it ever work. We just put order after order into Italy on the same basis. The whole packaging was done in Italy. It was all done in blue. You know, his company was Royal, which was blue. The corporate image was there. The Dragon pumps were turning over, the whole bit.
Right.
Now comes the interesting part of this exercise, right? So you can imagine right now that I'm on a win. By the way, Japan jumped into this same sort of thing. I didn't go to either country, unfortunately. I would have liked to. But nevertheless, and that as a result of UK trade shows that I did, because, you know, you talk about Hanover, but the UK and America have equal shows, but Europe likes Hanover. So, you know, I picked up Japan and I picked up Korea off the UK trade shows. So we're doing okay in the UK. We got over the hill. Now we're set down to turnover. I've gone out in the field. I've met all the resellers. They've all become my mates because at the end of the day, hey, Paul, meet me for a beer in the pub. The old English way of doing things. By this time, my production, which was partly being done in New Zealand, now partly being done in Australia, the New Zealand company had sold the die to this bloke who worked for the Royal New Zealand Navy as a steward on board. So he's serving food, and he come out of the Navy and he's got a handshake and he wants a bit producing in New Zealand for me, is now old and he wants to retire. So he sold his injection molding business, but not my die. I own the die. I own the rights in New Zealand by commercial contract.
Yes.
Right? So he decides that he would like to get rid of the die as well. So thinking of my welfare, maybe given his age and our relationship, he puts it up for sale in the local newspaper. And this sailor says, yeah, I'll have a piece of that. Where do I get it built? He said, oh, well, you can go back to the old company that has bought me out and they'll build it for you. So he rings me and he says, Paul, you need to come over because I've sold the die. And by the way, the contract meant that I had first option. So he went right against the contract. Come over to Christchurch and come and meet this new guy. He's going to look after the whole thing for you. He'll do all the assembly and it'll be, all wonderful. So I couldn't get on the plane quick enough because I sensed danger.
Yeah.
And I flew into Christchurch and I met up with my principal manufacturer and met the new guy. And then the principal manufacturer said, see you later. You don't need me anymore. I'm gone. So this bloke and I are looking at each other going, okay. Now, fortunately, by this time, the Chinese had entered the market and I had about 13 opposition Chinese guns. Were nowhere near the quality that I had, but they were there and they were there at a price. And this New Zealand guy didn't know it. So I'm sitting there going, I'm going to keep this little 6 in my sleeve and I hopefully won't have to pull it out of the bag. But if I do, I'm going to fire all 6 bullets. I'll destroy this guy mentally before he even starts. So the thing was, I said, the agreement's in place and you need to establish the agreement. And he said, well, it's with the old company. It's got the old name on it. So you get a fresh one created and I'll sign off on it. So what do? I went to a local typist in Christchurch and said, hey, I want this retype, but I want these changes done. Of course, boom, 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 boom. 30 minutes later, I've got the necessary papers. The following day, I'm due to fly out. So we arranged to meet at the airport prior to me flying out. I said, so here's the documents. They're exactly the same as the previous. Sign them now, and I'll sign them now, and we're done, right? And keep in mind that New Zealand was seeing all of this stock coming through with the branding and the colours. So that was another, like, hey, I'm in a pretty good position with my new business I've just acquired. He refused to sign it. I want to think about it. Now, what was happening behind the scenes we didn't know is the previous manufacturer had said to him, just to wet the circle, you don't need this guy in Australia because the colour branding is there. You can know the names and do direct deals yourself at the same price as what the Aussie was selling. Undermine, right? Because he wanted the sale.
Yeah.
So I've got no choice because they're now saying, hey, you've got to jump on board the plane. We're flying. Okay. So we do a handshake that he's going to sign it and send it across to me by fax and a registered mail with the actual copy in it. I get back and I'm still smelling a rat. And I went, this guy, just the nature of the person, you get a gut feeling and you go with your gut. So fortunately, I had massive capital behind me and massive real estate behind me. So what do? I start looking for a company that can do injection molding for me, and I find one. And of course, the original gun needed some improvements to it, which I found along the way. Model 1 never is 100% the way you want it. Model 2 gets better, Model 3 gets even better, and so on. So I commissioned this injection molding company to make the die for me, and we get it right. And the next minute he's produced it. My attitude was, I'm going to keep this gun as a promo gun and continue to buy from New Zealand until such time as the relationship is set. By the way, going back to the Chinese guns, yeah, I opened up the case and showed him what I was up against in the international market, and I said, you know, I'm very strong. If you don't understand what these are, you're in trouble. So I am the conduit to make your new investment work.
Yes.
It's up to you. Now, he's got a beautiful house. He's in a new marriage. So he's got everything going for him. He's got this brand new business. Okay. So now I set up the Australian side of it. I go back to him over the phone and I said, so what are you going to do? Are you going to sign off on this thing or not? No, we've decided we're not, but we'll continue to supply you because we're going to supply the New Zealand market. And I'm not comfortable with an agreement just yet until I get a real handle on the thing. So I went, okay, all right. So you are going to continue? Yes, I am. Behind the scenes, because of all the labels and the colours on the guns, is he went to the UK and he approached the UK company, and the UK company went, absolutely, we'll buy them direct from you because you're the manufacturer.
No way.
And you're going to do it at a better price than what Paul will do it. Bastards. And the UK company didn't know that I'd already engaged in this other design, right?
Right.
Nor did they know that I had a trademark and a registered company. Okay. So now we're in a situation of, no, this is going on. But one of those blokes that I had a lot of beers with in the pub, it turned out he was in Bristol, rang me and he went, Paul, this is going on in the UK market. I went, what do you mean? He said, something's changed. The packaging's changed, the labels, the accessories, everything's changed. And he said, there's some alterations going on. And I said, mate, I trust you and I believe you, but can you send me 2 samples?
Nice.
FedEx or whatever. And he went, yeah, of course, for you, absolutely. Don't worry about the money. I'm happy to send it to you. Buy me a beer when you're next over. Right. So eventually they arrived. I took one of them and went, shit. I'm in trouble. Right? I'm in trouble. So what do? I went to my local lawyer on a recommendation from my accountant. So the lawyer was a commercial lawyer. And I sat down with him and I said, here's my story. Now, lawyers being lawyers, he heard that cash register ring so bloody loud.
Yeah.
In hindsight. But he was genuine to my face. So he said, I need all the background on this, how you've come up through the ranks, what's happened and why it's happened. Give me a minute. I need to get a tape recorder. So he grabs a pocket recorder, opens it up and says, right, let's go. So we talk 2 and a bit hours to the point where my brain drain is so enormous, my head is spinning, and I just went, I just can't give you any more than what I've given you at the moment. When I stand back and think about it, I'll be fine. And he said, don't worry, Paul, I'm going to have all this typed up. You'll have the document. I want you to read through it and make pencil corrections where you feel the need, because when you see it in written form, it'll formulate better. So he said, just give me a day or 2. So I went, okay, fine. Eventually I got the phone call and he said, come into the office, and which I did. And we sat down and he said, I want you to do it here and now because I want to be present while you're making the alterations. Kajing, he's being paid by the hour. I could have walked away, done it, come back and went, there it is. But I'm not thinking. This guy is supposed to be my friend, my guy that I'm employing to do the job. So what happens is we go through it and he said, okay, now we'll have that retyped, and that becomes the foundation stone of what we're going to do. And he said, my suggestion now is that we have a conversation with your solicitor in the UK and we delve into your intellectual property over there, and then we'll issue a legal summons to the UK company, and we'll also issue the same thing to the New Zealand operation, right? So I went, yep, fine. So as it turned out, because of the time frame, he come to my home once we'd got all the documentation together, and we made an international call on speakerphone to the UK. That was all pre-lined up in advance, so everybody knew what was going on. Turned out the accountant come into the meeting as well, the UK accountant. So I had a fixed kijing going on in the UK and another one going on in Australia, right? So now these guys are having all their conversation. It's all going around in circles. And eventually, during the phone conversation, the UK guys go, let's roll up the sleeves. Let's issue notification to the guys in the UK, which were in the same town as where the accountant and the solicitor was.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, walk down the street, here's the summons, you're in court, fella, you breached this guy's trademark, right? And I'm going, whoa, this is going to be good. I'm going to make some money out of this. So what happened was, by this time, the original American guy that reverse engineered, I'd found another guy in New York who was the agent for the UK guy in America. And I'd done the whole Punch and Judy show. I'd gone back into New York, sold him. He loved me. I loved him. Stayed at his house, picked me out a limo out of JFK to drive out to Long Island, stay in his house. We were the best of buddies. We did trade shows in Toronto and all over the bloody joint. You know, I did 14 days around America, barnstorming, different city in every town, selling guns, along with his sales manager. Nevertheless, right? So now we issue summons on the UK company and we wait. What happens was the UK company went, hey, I've got a summons. By this time, he's reaching out to the American guy who has been buying the guns out of New Zealand behind my back.
Right.
The Italian guy, the same guy. The Spanish guy, the same thing, right? And the Germans. The French didn't jump into it. But I can tell you, when I was at my peak, we ended up buying a fax machine with the biggest paper magazine that we could possibly get, because we'd walk in the morning and there would be reams of orders on the floor for tens of thousands of dollars. So we were in a peak. We went over the million. We went over the $1 million mark. My staff went way up because I needed more people to do packaging. I bought. I'd instigate a design on remote control drilling, so that all the drilling in the membranes of the gun was all done. I had probably about 10 guys that come in of a night time doing part-time work, doing all the assembly work. I had a PA. I'd walked into a new warehouse. Everything was just like, we're winning.
Look, golden. Yeah.
I bought the big house. And I had a separate block of land, both waterfront. The big house had guest quarters, all self-contained for overseas visitors, on an upper level where they looked down the whole length of the lake that I was on in Surfers Paradise. You know, we're talking, in today's money, it would be $2.5 million in today's money.
Nice.
And the land would probably be 1.5, right? Vacant block of land on a peninsula. So now we have issued the summons on New Zealand, and we've issued it on the UK. We've seen all of a sudden this massive drop. So my overheads were up relevant to the turnover. Now I've got to learn how to pull the belt in. And I've got to go back into the market and establish new people. So the first one was, let's get back into the UK and find a company, which I did. And that turned out to be a great relationship. And the distance between the two of them was what my new one was up the top end of the UK, and my other one was toward the bottom end of the UK. So they were far apart. And, you know, the original UK company was under duress. So he was losing big time and losing credibility with all of his resellers, because we went around to all the mates that I drank beer with and went, hey, here's the new supply line at the same price as what we gave it to you before, with all the goodies. And of course now I had more products, so they go, yeah, Paul, great. I end up designing over 100 products. So that American company that copied me, I copied them, which was really, really fascinating. And there's another part to that story. So here we go. We're now trying to maintain turnover for overheads and profitability and all the rest of it. We're now having to open up new customers in those countries that we lost.
Yes.
It turned out in Germany, we got Kaiser air compressors, one of the biggest compressor manufacturers in the world. And Thomas Kaiser, the owner, become a friend. And I went into Germany and did the same Punch and Judy show with his reps. I work with Compair air compressors in the UK as well, aside from my other distributor. And I just networked and continued to network. So we managed to beef it up. But the legal thing, which is what I want to go into, trademarks and intellectual property. By this time, I'd trademarked in most of the countries that I was working in. We opened up South Africa and Israel, Zimbabwe, and I felt more secure. And of course, the government was giving me massive rebates because I was on this export school. So 98% of my expenditure I was getting back, right? Ended up hiring an Aussie to live in the United States and act as my representative in the US. That was a mistake because I couldn't control him. You didn't know whether he's working or he wasn't working. So eventually I pulled him back out of it. Now, the legal battle, the money is just going out in bucket loads because now I've got a legal team in New Zealand, a legal team in the UK, and the legal team in Australia. So the UK team say, Paul, we can bring this to a pretty big conclusion, but we're going to need a ruling from Queen's Counsel. Can you fly into London for a meeting? Now, by this time, my wife has had a child. We conceived after 14 IVF attempts. So I've got a boy and she's grounded. She can't travel with me, which was a downside because I needed that person that I could unload on that would give me an honest input opinion, unbiased.
The sixth sense.
Absolutely. So I fly into London, I find the hotel and the black cab and the whole thing, and we meet up at the Queen's Counsel offices. By this time, my lawyer in the UK had engaged a barrister. We needed a barrister to get up to the level of Queen's Counsel. So I'm in this room with the Queen's Counsel in his robes minus the wig. So he's got his red robes on. Beautiful palatial office, all the books, the whole lot. And I look around and there's my solicitor with his assistant. There's my barrister with 2 assistants and Queen's Counsel. The bill for Queen's Counsel was 6,000 sterling for 1 hour. And so he said, Paul, I've read all the briefs that your barrister has given me. We've had a pre-conversation prior to you arriving. And he said, and this guy was the only Queen's Counsel in the UK that was familiar with Australian and New Zealand laws. So this is why he was picked, right? Elderly guy, very, very knowledgeable. And he said, aside from all the small talk and conversation we're going to have, and I'll ask you a few questions, I can tell you right now that you're going to win this case because the case has similarities to a legal battle between Hitachi and Kawasaki in the earth-moving industry. And we can quote verse and chapter that will ensure that you get it. But obviously, you've got to go back to Australia and you've got to fight New Zealand in Brisbane and draw them into you to win this case. So we talked about the case, we talked about the history. The solicitors and the barristers made all the notices that they needed to make because they were going to serve further information to the UK company. And eventually the UK company folded. They not folded financially. They just went, yeah, okay, we give up. We're not going to import the product anymore. So they just like imploded completely. The Americans, because they weren't under any legal pressure, took notice of what was going on, but tried to maintain their reputation in the marketplace. and they reverse engineered my Dragon pump. So here I am with the American company in Cincinnati that had reverse engineered my gun and my Dragon pump. Now I've got the Americans with a New Zealand gun and a reversal of the Dragon pump. Still hadn't done it right, but they got it, working reasonably well. Now I've lost the market, but regained a section of it. So now, from a legal point of view, we go back to Brisbane and we issue legal notices on the New Zealand company. They appoint a barrister in Melbourne to come up to Brisbane. And now my solicitor has said, okay, Paul, today we're in court. Let's go up to Brisbane and we'll meet with the barrister that I've appointed in Brisbane. So we get into the Brisbane office of this barrister, and he's reading through all the notes and everything else that's going on. And they've had a conversation prior to this actual meeting. And he said, I don't think you got a hope in hell. And I said, you're kidding me. I haven't got this. This all happened over 18 months, by the way. So the nerves, the pressure mentally to keep on top of this, the factor of I am going to win no matter what was foremost in my mind. And the people that I'd set up were still in paper catalogue form. So some of them were producing catalogue phone book sizes. My obligation was to them because they gave me the faith to work with me, right? Yeah. So anyway, as it turned out, we sit in this, and the barrister says, no, it's not going to happen. And I said, you have to be kidding me. And he said, no. And I said, look, I've sat in chambers with second highest Queen's Counsel in the UK. And I said, I can tell you right now, verbatim, that he turned around and said, it's a foregone conclusion that I win this case based on legal argument between Hitachi and Kawasaki. And I quoted the book number and chapter and verse. So what does he do? He walks over to his book collection, pulls it out, opens it up, gets the chapter. This is the Bible of the legal industry.
Yes, all based on precedent. Yep.
Don't say anything. I want to read this. He reads it, and he looks up, and he looks at the solicitor, and he said, why didn't you tell me this? And he said, I didn't think it was relevant. And the barrister said, well, it is. So now we go into court, and of course, the magistrate's not prepared to talk to us. You go into another room and you debate this out, and then you bring in the ruling, and I'll give you the final nod. We'll tap the gavel. So I'm in the room with now two barristers, one opposing me, one for me, my solicitor. I'm there with a New Zealand guy who's flown in. And by the way, through his patent attorney in New Zealand, he had registered, unbeknownst to me, trademarks in similar countries that I had registered. The difference was that I'd registered my logo and he had registered what's called a word trademark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you play a bit of chess, the word trademark is absolutely supreme.
Yes.
A artwork trademark should be registered at the same time as a word trademark.
Yes, yes.
But nevertheless, if you only do word, you're in a bloody good position to fight off anybody else. Okay?
Yes.
So now this debate occurs across this meeting table between everybody that wants to go on, and the New Zealand manufacturer is told to shut up. And I'm told before I walk in the door, because, they know I'm hostile and I've got a lot of knowledge, Paul, please, we will take you out to have a discussion, but please don't enter into any discussion while this is going on because it's sensitive. A slip of a word could blow the whole thing out the door, right? So away it goes, and they're fighting, and the other side conceive that we're a winner. One last factor. What about all the trademarks in the other countries that we own that you don't own? Because if we're going to cave in on this, we're going to sell you the trademarks. So I went, okay, all right. So let me take a brief from my counsel. We'll leave the room for a few minutes and we'll talk about it. And they said to me, you've got this guy, you know, over the barrel. You've pretty much got him won. But to win it, you're going to have to buy the trademarks. Can you afford the 10 grand? Of course, my bank balance is just like going down and I'm going, fuck. So I ring my accountant and I said, I need to do this. What do I do? And she said, Paul, I'll back you myself. If you think you're going to win this and 10 grand is what's stopping you from winning it, I will personally back you. So, I mean, I'm running now on an overdraft like you wouldn't believe. I just grey hair overdraft. So anyway, you know, and all tied to your real estate. So we walked back in and we went, yeah, okay, that's the deal. Write it up. So they wrote it up and everybody signed off on it. And then we walked into the judging room and the magistrate looked at the notes and said, okay, bang, done. You've agreed. So we walked out. The New Zealand guy wanted to shake my hand. I could have punched his bloody lights out. And I went, this isn't over. This is not over. This is just the first bloody round, buddy. And I can tell you right now, commercially, you're done. You're absolutely done. So we walked away. He actually had to rename his product, and he lost his credibility real quick. We announced to the whole international market that we had won this. So I'm in the car, I'm back into the barrister's office with the solicitor, and I said, so now, if I won this case, where's the money? And he said to me, what do you mean, where's the money? And I said, damages. The damages are a bloody enormous loss of turnover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, no. He said, if you want to go down that road, Paul, it's going to cost you another $70,000. And he said, and there's a downside, because he can disclose 2 or 3 invoices with a value of $3,000. And that's the value of the damages. So you'll never, ever know the full value of how much damage he has done to you, because you cannot get access to all of his invoices. Right?
Even under discovery, you can't get it.
Even under discovery. So I'm sitting there going, have you guys led me up the pathway?
Right.
Because at the point that we went back in and said, yeah, we agree at a $10,000 outlay, we could have turned around and said, but that $10,000 is back on you for the damages you've done to us. So I said, but you let it go, right? You let it go. No so way. The end result was, I'm sorry, Paul, we did everything we could do, but now you've got your IP back. Go back out and start attacking the market commercially and you'll be okay. So what happens? I go back and I sit down with my accountant and go, so here's the butcher's bill, right? Because she didn't know the full extent of all of the legal expenses. So we sit down and we do the butcher's bill, and she said, Paul, I'm really worried about where you are, because, you know, you've got this mortgage on your house and your other block of land, you've got your company going, you've got your staff, et cetera, et cetera. You're shouldering a hell of a lot. And I went, yeah, but I can get it up real bloody quick. She said, the problem is that the time it's going to take from where you are right now to that peak,
right, the lag,
where you can start to push it all back. Yep. Right. And the expense to get there, because you've got to be on the plane and you've got to, hotels are, $100 to $200 a day, et cetera, et cetera. So she said, I really want to walk you off to a bankruptcy company. And I went, over my dead body. She said, no. I've got to do this because I'm your accountant, and you've got to sit down, whether you like it or not, with this guy.
You become trading insolvent at that point, right?
Yep. You've got to listen to what he's got to say.
Yeah.
So we sat there and we listened to what the guy had to say. And I said, is there a time frame on this? And he said, well, put it this way. If you're on a downhill slope, sooner or later you're going to hit the bottom, and sooner or later you're going to have to say, well, she's all over, Charlie. or between now and the bottom of the slope, you feel you can turn it around in some way, shape, or form, you'll get out of it. So I said, okay, so how do we turn it around? And he said, well, you need money, you need capital, you need an investor. And I went, an investor. I can handle an investor, no problems. Right? I've got all these awards. I've done all this public speaking. I've got an image here in Australia. No one really knows what the hell has happened overseas, right? It was very, very private. So we walked out of that meeting and we're in the car, and the accountant's going, can you pull this off? I said, you watch me. You watch me. So what happens?
Wow.
I appoint a manager to manage the business while I am out seeking a new investor. And at this time, the manager, who's fairly experienced, said, we need to update your accolades. Let's go after this business award that Channel 9 is advertising, and Commonwealth Bank, and Cooper's Library, and the whole lot. So we come up with a business plan. We won one of 6 best in Australia, and it come up on national TV with Channel 9. And I had this award of under 10 million turnover, most outstanding exporter of the year. So I'm going out with credentials, and I'm starting to meet like-minded guys that are in the vacuum industry in Australia, looking for a JV partner. I got turned down a couple of times, and then I got a phone call out of nowhere by a guy that I knew, who went, I heard you're looking for a JV partner. I went, yeah, I am. And he said, well, I've got a company in Singapore that has commercial property in Singapore. They are an industrial company. They want to sell the commercial shopping center and invest that money in industry based in Brisbane. And I went, okay. And he said, but how do you feel about meeting a Singaporean? I went, I don't care. I don't care. I can sit down with anybody. So he said, okay, the guy's going to fly in. Let me line up a meeting. So lo and behold, I meet this guy in Brisbane, little Singaporean bloke, and he's an accountant by trade. So when it comes to money, he's knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we sit down, and he feels that he can work with me. He likes me. And I think, well, he's an okay guy. And he said, Paul, one of the things I can give you, which you don't have right now, he said, we can set up an office in Singapore with Chinese speaking reps, and we can go into Southeast Asia, because I happen to have an office in China. I have one in Thailand. I have one in Malaysia. And he said, and I have one in Indonesia. So he said, all we've got to do is link you up with my sales manager, and you can fly into these places and do your presentation, and we'll win the business. And futuristically, we may build some product in Singapore, or we may just continue to build it in Brisbane and ship it, into Singapore and then to other locations. We could hold buffer stock in Singapore. And I'm thinking, wow, here we go. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, vested.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, So he said, well, I want to see your operation on the Gold Coast. And I said, sure. So I go back to the Gold Coast. He gets a hire car. He comes down on the appointed day. I walk him through the whole operation. He meets the staff. And he went, I can work with this. I can work with this. So he said, now we've got to do due diligence. So he said, I'm going to bring over, because we have a Perth office, I'm going to bring over one of my accountants from Perth who will stay with you for a week. And he's going to go through your books, and he's going to go through your whole place. You're going to have to do a stock take. We're going to have to do a write-up on your capital equipment and the whole lot. So you're going to lose a week working with this guy. Is that okay? And I went, sure. Make a long story short, after this period, he invested some small capital to keep me liquid and moving forward. And eventually, after 6 months of due diligence, he said, okay, we're now ready to sign off on all the papers. And he said, but our offer is, we will give you 30% of your company in cold hard cash. We will retain 70%. The original deal was 60-40, which I was more comfortable with. But after the due diligence and everything else that I could see, I went, what the hell if I'm the single biggest shareholder, I'm managing director, I've got an income, I'm 50 years of age, this is going to work for me, right? Because you're getting further
and
down
it's
the
your
road.
baby,
and it's my baby. So, and they need my knowledge, what's inside my head.
Yeah.
So now we're away, and he says, yeah, I want you to fly here and I want you to fly there. So I opened up South Africa. I'm doing stuff over there. I do Kruger National Park on my 50th birthday, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing real well. Back into Brisbane, and the next minute they said, we're going to move the whole facility into Brisbane, which meant that I would be driving an hour and a half up and an hour and a half back every day. And my first concern was, what about all my staff? He said, don't worry about the staff.
Yeah.
He said, if people want to move to Brisbane out of convenience, they can, or they can carpool and drive in and out. I don't care. I've got staff in Brisbane that properly trained, they can take over the responsibilities, but I want to move it to Brisbane. And I said, as managing director, no. It stays here because all of my subcontractors are down here. To establish the same amount of subcontractors in Brisbane is too difficult. I was indirectly employing 150 people when I was at my peak. You can imagine.
Yeah.
So now we're in a situation where at loggerheads, right? So I went over, I then had a trip into Europe, and I come back with an order which was 60 odd grand, and the money was into the bank account. And by this time, he had put a Singaporean person into my office to act as the accountant, because he figured general staff shouldn't be doing accountancy. So this guy was watching the books and reporting back to his boss. And so typically I come back on the weekend to spend time with family, and then I'll spend Monday and Tuesday doing reports, tidying up all my paperwork, and I'm in the office on Wednesday, which is now the preparation for wages. So this little weed of a person walks into my office, and I've got a glass-walled office. I close the door. He sits down. He said, Paul, we've got a problem. And I said, yeah, what's the problem? And he said, we don't have enough money for wages. I looked at him and I said, no, that's not true, because I know that we had 55, 60 odd grand just hit our bank account this week from the UK in good faith to produce product. Now, if we've got no money, how the hell are we going to produce? And he said, I don't know, but I can tell you right now, the bank is empty, other than a few $100s. So you're going to have to get on the phone to Singapore and figure out what in the hell you're going to do as managing director. So, of course, now steam's coming out of the ears. I'm as frustrated as hell. I pretty much screamed at this guy to get out of my office, because he's supposed to be protecting the well-being of the company. And I ring Singapore, right? And he said, well, Paul, how much do you need to cover wages? And I had the figure, so I told him, and he said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send that money to you, and that'll be in your bank account in the next couple of hours. But he said, in terms of the money to produce the order, no, we're going to have some conversations about that. And I'm thinking, what the bloody hell is going on, right? Because literally now the company is bankrupt on paper. So I leave the office for a lunch break. The accountant gets a email from Singapore to say, we're putting the money in the account, pay the wages. I walk out, I make a phone call to another guy who was an acquaintance of mine, who was a solicitor. And I said, can I come over? I need to just download something, 15 minutes max, I'll be with you. I'm happy to pay a fee if you want the fee. He said, no, don't worry about the fee. Come on over, Paul. I'll have a coffee ready for you. So I sat down with him. I said, so what's the situation? And he said, well, right now, because you're legally bankrupt and you are the major shareholder, he said, you're the guy that's going to be behind the jail bars watching your family grow up because you've been trading insolvent. He said, the other directors are clear, even though it's 70%, the onus is on you. I said, what do you suggest I do? And he said, you issue a letter to the board of directors and the chairman, which is the Singaporean guy, that you're resigning your position as MD and you're now taking up position as export manager. That clears you of that. You still hold your 30% shares. That doesn't change. But now you're not responsible for the well-being of the company. And I went, okay. So the wording of that, he said, I'll have my typist put it together in the next hour. And he said, I'll send it across to you. And I recommend you sign off it and issue it straight away. So I did. Within 2 hours, the Singaporean guy called a board of directors meeting in Brisbane of his co-directors. Now, they are all overseas directors. So they're in Bangkok, Thailand, Singapore, the whole lot. They all flew in for a meeting. And he asked me to drive into Brisbane, into the boardroom for this meeting. And I sat there and he said, Paul, this resignation. And I'm at this table with these guys. This is like, okay, I'm meeting these people for the first time. He said, this resignation. And I said, yes. He said, we're going to accept it. But at the same time, I can tell you right now, we're not going to accept your position as international sales manager or business manager. He said, right now, we've decided that we no longer need your services. So you'll be paid up the money that's owed to you in terms of wages. Any other superannuation or other things that are relevant to our contractual agreements they'll be paid out accordingly, but your role here is now totally finished. You will still hold the 30%, and as we make profit and dividends are declared, you'll be given funds relevant to that. And now I'd like you to leave the room. And I just walked out of that room and I went, bloody hell. And I got an email later the day to remind me that I had signed off on a non-competitive clause within all of the paperwork.
Right, of course, yeah.
That stopped me from opposing the product for 5 years. They were very scared that I was going to go to America and bring in opposition and just pick up where I left off, right?
Yeah. So how old are you at this point?
I'm 51 at this point.
Okay, yeah.
So what happened was I go back down the coast and I tell my wife the news. I've still got the keys to the place. And, of course, the staff had to be advised. And I decided to not advise them until the following morning. So I went into the office on the following morning. And within about 10 minutes of arriving and bringing everybody together and saying, hey, this is what's going down. I don't know who's going to be there. By the accountant, I got him out of the building completely. I said, leave the building, because if you don't, I'm going to punch your lights out. You've let me down. Just leave the building. So he went outside with a cup of coffee to do whatever he would tea, whatever he would do. So the next minute, 2 guys walk in from head office in Brisbane and say hello to everybody. And they said, we don't want to panic any of you, but we can tell you right now that we are here to pick up all of the furniture, all of the equipment, and we are carrying it up to Brisbane. And while that's going on, we're going to sit in the boardroom and we're going to talk to all of you at the same level. And I'm sitting there going, what? There were 14 or 15 filing cabinets full of R&D. Now, fortunately, that night when I come back from Brisbane, I cleared out my own office. So my fast pump design and all of my engineering drawings and my personal stuff that was backing up what was in here
belonged in the future.
Well, they couldn't get in the office to survey. Turned out they'd been coming down for a couple of weeks over the weekend, opened up the office and had recorded every file in the filing cabinets behind my back. Yep.
Wow.
So out in the street were 3 moving trucks, gigantic moving trucks, and employees in those trucks. Some of the cabs had 3 guys in them, right? And these blokes just walked in and they just started picking up everything, backed the truck up, loaded it, and then they just started and they kept on going. It took them 3 days to empty the factory premises. And the staff were briefed inside the office and told them they would have a job in Brisbane. But, if they didn't want to go to Brisbane, the company was happy to write them up the money that was due to them, and they don't want any information from them at all. They don't want to know about anything that's inside the place. They'll figure it out themselves. So what happened is they packed it all up. My staff were dismissed for 3 days, paid accordingly, invited back into a restaurant the following Monday, and given the ultimatum, are you coming or are you not coming? And those that weren't signed off, and she was all over Jack. So it turned out that after he had moved all of this stuff and done what he had done, because he had 70% of the company, he changed the name from Blovac to another name and transferred all of the intellectual property and everything else across to the other company, which meant that my 30% shares now were useless.
Worthless.
Absolutely. So now I am in a position where
screwed.
The house has to be sold. The block of land has to be sold. Furniture went out the door. Fortunately, the handshake we got kept our head above water while we reestablished ourselves. And, you know, it was like, okay, go again. And, you know, that's another story for another time. Because
that's a great I can tell everybody next Thursday night, next Friday in Australian time, we will go again.
Right. The lesson learned so far is that if you have an invention, the first thing you need to do is to put a design registration around it which protects the appearance of the product. The second thing is, if you choose to go down the road in the name of your company or you as an individual. Yeah.
I think you as an individual.
I always feel the individual. Although,
you know, because when it gets into the company, like what you did, is the company can have its own issues. I mean, you could, let me say this: if you have a separate company that only holds IP or a trust that only holds IP, then
that's what I've done.
You can preserve it, especially as we get older. As you get older, put it in a trust, have beneficiaries to the trust. It outlives you, so this doesn't become part of your estate.
I've done.
Nice.
The trust is there, and I can move it from the trust back to my commercial company. So,
the trust can license the trust can license the company to use it. But if somebody messes with the company, you just withdraw the license and relicense another company.
And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm actually licensing a manufacturer because of these projects that come up this week. So I've got a big fabrication company that's doing all the manufacturing for me. Right, my ideas, their ability to manufacture. That's another part of the journey. But the important part is, if you're going to apply a patent, remember that the patent can be changed.
Yes.
And if you want to defend that patent, be prepared to have the money to defend it. You've got to figure it out. And that's why
it's a waste of time.
Build its opposition. Build its opposition straight away. Right. And then, of course, most importantly, the trademarks, because if you don't have a business. No matter what you think, no matter what domain name you think you have, you know, Google, good daddy will come up, or GoDaddy will come up with another AU or net or, you know, whatever it is, biz, and you lose that thing, or change the spelling and you lose it anyway. So, you know, these are the things that are really, really important in business negotiations and doing business. So that's
well, Paul, my plan is you know, that we get through the next 25 years. I don't care how many times we meet up and chat for an hour and a half at a time, and then you and I will talk high-end business, you know, like, because I've also had this, you know, I've been sued for $1.3 million by Microsoft, you know.
Wow.
I got a story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's a big burden to handle.
I got out of it for a few $1,000s with a surrender flag that I put in, that I delivered to the managing director of Microsoft myself. Well, to reception anyway.
You've got to sometimes you've got to realize you got to do that doggy thing and roll over on your back and put your paws up in the air and say, yeah, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to take you on. Right.
I've taught
and
all
I
my
can
kids
I can add to that.
To bear the neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can
Live
talk.
to
I
survive
think this is
another day.
marvelous. Marvelous. Two older guys, load of experience in big end of we're small business, but big end of life. Like legal and stuff like that.
So Ben, how are we going for time at the moment? How are we going for time?
Perry?
Oh, we're pretty close because we're at an hour and 40, so we're pretty close to the limit for each one.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine.
And it's not a bad place. It's not a bad. It's not a bad place to cut it because we've got to the end of that chapter, right? Everything's been moved.
Exactly.
You've got the house and things, so we know where to pick up next time. That's what I was thinking. We should find an easy place to pick it up from because you've got another 25 years going on from that.
I'm
going to give you a call after this. So leave another half an hour for me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I can do that. So are we going to call on this system or what?
No.
Or a phone call?
I'll call you.
No, phone?
Yeah, I think maybe Messenger or something. Messenger phone. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Good. Okay. So we're done.
All right.
Ben,
all right. We know where we're up to. Dude, that was an hour and a half. Went like that, It's amazing, amazing. And and the thing is that, in order to draw the conclusions, the summary, the lessons, you've got to hear. I've learned this from your story, realizing how complex it is. It's better to hear the whole story before we start digging into the different lessons too much. Obviously there's the summary, the one sentence lesson, trademarks and all that. But we're at a compatible enough level to be able to talk about, wins and losses at this huge level together as a discussion once we know what we've been through, kind of thing.
Yep. Agree.
Yep.
And I do agree. It's a good point to cut off because the next part leads me towards, you and I catching up, given another, what was it, around about 9 years. So we're going to move from year 2000 to year 2009, thereabouts. I think is when we connected first. Yeah.
Right. So right. Yes. Maybe 2010, 11.
Yeah.
Even I don't know.
That'll go a little bit. Yeah. That'll go a little bit faster than what I've done so far. Yeah.
Well, that's the through the chaos. Because I also I had a point. I swore I'd never employ another person, and I didn't employ another person for 15 years.
Yeah.
I swore.
And I've done that. Yep. Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
Now we've got 30, but yeah, I had 105 at one point.
Those guys, those employees become your apprentices, and they're the guys that go out and all of a sudden they're opposing you because they see that the product is simple and they think they know they can do what you did, but the passion stops them. The lack of passion stops them. Greed is,
anybody can copy the iPhone 3S, but that doesn't mean they can get to an iPhone 15. It's something about, whether it's God or the universe or whatever, but I always feel that we're channeling those of us that invent product and then get to innovate the invention, then I think that we're channeling something, because it comes from nothing, we're not, we're just people. We're just people.
Yeah. Exactly.
We get given these insights, and the best way to describe that, I don't know the name of the movie, but Ben, you might be able to look it up for next time. There's an Indian kid who solved the unsolvable maths quiz, right? And they took him to Oxford. He died of tuberculosis at 36 years old or something. It's a horrific story.
Okay.
But they took him to Oxford, and he solved the unsolvable maths equation. There's a movie on it, and the British and the professors would never accept him because when they said, "How did you solve it?" he said, "I woke up in the morning and I knew."
Right.
Don't
we do that?
So it came from God, from Krishna, from Buddha from somebody, but it came. I woke up and I knew.
Yeah.
So it's a great movie.
Yeah.
So I'll try and find it.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Good. All right.
I will see you next Thursday night, American time, next Friday.
Okay.
Right.
Great. We'll go
and then
again.
I'll give you a call in a minute. Yeah, we'll go it again.
Wonderful.
Okay, buddy. That's fantastic.
Okay.
Amazing.
See you, Ben.
Okay.
See you, Ben. Take care. All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Yep. See you later.
Thanks, Paul. Cheers,
Bye-bye.
mate.
Bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to another Service Six Sigma podcast. If you enjoyed the content, please like and share with other mobile service contractors. We live stream daily, Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. All previous podcasts are available for viewing at service6sigma.com. And for listening on your favorite podcast channel, just search Service Six Sigma. See you next time, and you have an epic day.